Welcome everybody, thanks for coming to see my talk. I am Daniele Carlesso, a PhD student at the Macquarie University in Sydney, Australia, and today I will talk to you about my experiment on the dynamics of hanging chain behavior in the weaver ants. The weaver ants are an arboreal species of ant that is widely diffused in the Australasian region. They live in very large colonies that colonize on trees and have evolved the abilities of building a variety of self-assemblages for foraging and nesting. This can span from bridges to cover gaps in the foraging trails to pulling chains to bend leaves while nesting. A particular feature about these structures is that they are completely self-organized. So ants don't need any centralized control while forming these structures, but only rely on local information and multiple interactions among them. Today, I will talk to you about a particular kind of structure that is the hanging chains. These are used by ants to bridge vertical gaps in the foraging trails, and to date, our knowledge about these structures is very limited. We know that the chain formation probabilities are increased by the presence of a visual attractant below the chain and by a higher traffic volume. But so far, nobody studied how ants manage to maintain functional chain during foraging for a prolonged period of time, which is likely the context in which this behavior has evolved. To explore this behavior, I developed an apparatus in which a sub-colony of ants was forced to build the chains to reach a profitable food source. I varied the gap height to be covered between different replicates to understand whether these can influence the likelihood to observe the chain behavior. And each of these chains have been recorded for 10 minutes after recruitment, so once the ants started foraging. Each of these videos has then been analyzed by extracting 60 frames, so one every 10 seconds. This is how a frame looks like, and for each of these, I calculated the area covered by the chain, the number of ants involved in the structure, and the length of the gap between the end of the chain and the platform. Finally, I divided the chain in three different sections, the top, the middle, and the bottom one, to understand whether they differ in their structural properties. Going to my preliminary results, we observed that ants form chains only when needed. So in the 0.5 centimeter replicates, we never observe a chain because an ant can easily walk from the dowel to the platform to reach the food source. However, when this is not possible anymore, the ants always build chains to reach the food source. We observed that the number of ants involved in the structure increased with the gap to be covered. So we observed that for the 50 millimeter gap, the number of ants in the chain is exponentially higher than in the other gap heights. This relationship appears to be non-linear, and so this will be further investigated with the calculation of the density of the ants inside the chain. An intriguing result is that we rarely observe the chain cover the entire gap. So we often observe that the chain extends up to 1 ant length before reaching the platform. This may be an economic factor that allows ants to not sequester more work than necessary from the foraging task, so the number of ants involved in the structure is the minimum possible. And finally, analyzing the section of the chains, we observed that the higher proportion of ants is found in the top section of the chain, while the lower proportion of ants is found at the bottom. This structural difference may be due to an increased stability of the chain to be maintained for the whole duration of the experiment. So for the moment, these are the results that I analyzed. However, further analysis will include an higher temporal resolution analysis of the videos, in which we will individually track the ants to understand their joining and leaving dynamics over the course of the experiment. Successively, we will correlate the temporal patterns of the chain changes to the traffic dynamics that we observe over the 10 minutes. And finally, we will model the individual behavior of ants to understand and predict the chain behavior over different kinds of situations and environmental conditions. I want to thank you for your attention, and if you have questions, feel free to ask, and I will answer as soon as possible. Thank you.